Today we are learning about bar graphs and histograms. So the main idea is to be able to display and analyze data using both bar graphs and histograms. So here in the vocabulary, of course, we have bar graph, which is comparing data using solid bars to represent quantities. So the main word here is quantities, and as we see highlighted here, the bars are separated in a bar graph. A histogram is a special type of bar graph which uses bars to represent the frequency of numerical data organized in intervals. Meaning, we're going to have an interval on the horizontal, so vertical would be the up, horizontal would be the right. On the bottom here we'll have intervals, which typically are a range of numbers. And on the left we'll have frequency. So, these bars are also touching. So, for a histogram, our bars are touching. For a bar graph, our bars should not be touching. Our first example here is sports. The table shows the average number of miles run each day during training by members of a cross-country track team. Make a bar graph to display the data. So we have our table here. We're going to do our bar graph on this paper here. So I'm just taking a peek at the data here. We see Bob's ran 9 miles a day, Tamika's 12, David's 14. Just taking a peek, I see Jonas ran the least at 5, but we also need to be as high as 14. So, on a piece of paper, we would be covering 14. So I have the space to cover 14 on my paper here. However, on a typical piece of paper, you may want to go by 2 so you don't have to go all 14. Exactly 14 right there. So make my top bar a little neater because we're actually going to need to go that high. Okay. So Bob is going to be our first, and I'll write him on the side like that. You can also write it left to right, but this gives me a little more space. And again, we're going by 1s here, but I'm just going to label every other line by 2s as a kind of reminder of where my points are at. And Bob ran 9 miles. So we're going to fill a bar up to 9 right over Bob's name. And just scribble it in. Then we're on to the next one. Tamika ran 12. So it's okay to abbreviate. I could do Tammy for Tamika. She ran 12, so I already typically start at 12, do the mark, and then go down from there. This way I can just basically shade that in. Going on next, David had 14. So you can just put DAV for David. And that's the one that's going to go all the way to the top. Next we have Annie and Jonas. Now it is okay if you do switch the order around because order is not a big deal here. So by showing that, I'll just write Jonas first as 5. Up to this point. And Anne, since she's got a short name, we can write the whole thing out. She's got 8. So ran 8 miles a day. Leaving us last with space for Hannah. And that will be a 10 mile. So 10, going to be up here. We're going to try to squeeze it in. And again, notice this is a bar graph, so the bars can be filled in or they don't have to be. But the biggest part is that we're trying to hit exactly each point here. So again, this was 10. We had 14 here. You do not have to label it like this. This is just kind of a reminder of where we are at with each of these points. Should have been 5, 12, 9. And again, just remember that these bars are not touching. That is a big key point. Since we're pretty familiar with bar graphs, we're going to move on to histograms. In basketball, the number of wins for the 29 teams of a basketball league for a season have been organized into a frequency table. Now we're supposed to make a histogram of the data. Notice that previously where on the left side our labels were on this side, that we have number of wins. So we're going to have a range on the bottom. Instead of a title, it's going to be a range. So again, taking a peek back at my data, I see our highest is 10, our lowest is 3. So we're going to go to 10 here. And erase off any extras. On your paper, I would recommend only using 5 lines and just going by 2s if this was my paper. Just so you're not taking up 10 lines for one question. However, since we have the whole space here, we're going to use all the space we've got. So, now we've got up to 10s. Again, we'll just mark every other here by 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So the top of my graph is 11, so we won't hit the top. And my first is 11 to 20, so that is our interval, 11 to 20. And there's only 3 teams that have that frequency. So go up to 3, then go to the side. Next I'll have 21 to 30. And again, I made my bar a little wider here because they have to be touching. So it's important to make your bars a little bit wider on a histogram. I have 4 teams. So I'm just going to start right from that other graph, that bar, go over a little bit, and there's 21 to 30. Because it has to be touching, so you might as well start where they give you. And then 31 to 40, there's going to be another 4. So we can just draw straight aside. And then we'll switch colors here. Our next one's 41 to 50 is going to be 10. So this is our real high one. So I've been traced down the side here, go all the way up to 10. And lastly, we have 51 to 60 with 8. And there is a histogram. Again, notice that we have numbers on both the bottom and the side. So this would be number, interval of wins, kind of. And on the left we would have number of teams. Now, to some who are used to bar graphs, this might seem a little odd to have this type of data. But if we were looking for the number of teams who had more than 40 wins, this would be very helpful to us because we could see there's 10 teams for more than 10 wins. For more than 40 wins, it would be anything 41 and higher, which would be these 10 teams plus these 8 teams. Right, we have 10 here and 8 here, which would give us 18 teams with more than 40 wins. So that would be a question that we could answer easily using this histogram. Next is speed. The speeds of cars on a stretch of interstate are clocked by a police officer and have been organized into a frequency table. Make a histogram of the data. So again, we've got 4 pieces of information ranging from 2 to 18. So I'm going to example how I would do this on my paper here. So go up here. We're going to go by 2s. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So I don't need to go any higher than that. So just for my sheet of paper, I'd probably stop right here, actually. And erase the extras. And again, I'll just have markers on both sides. And we only have 4 intervals on this one. There we go. So our first interval starts at 50 to 59, and this is miles per hour. One on the left is number of cars. So we have 50 to 59, and we had 3, I believe. Nope, 2. So again, we make these wide because it's a histogram, so they need to be touching, because 59 is right next to 60. So then our next one's 60 to 69. And we had 14 cars, so going all the way up to 14. Next one is 70 to 79 and 18. So So going up 2 more to 18. Then lastly we have 80 to 89. I believe this is where we had our 3. Yep, 3. So now, another thought for this data is, where would 70 miles per hour for a car going 70 miles per hour appear? It's going to appear in this green section. And so the reason I asked that question is that if you looked at this data and we're thinking, well, I wonder what the speed limit is. You know, of course, sometimes there's people that break the law and do speed more than the speed limit. However, I mean, we've got quite a few in 60 to 69, so if anyone's going in the upper 60s or even 65, they would be in that area. However, because of the large number in the 70s to 79s, I would typically consider your average driver not going to be speeding over 5 miles per hour of the limit. So I would assume from this, if we had a question and had to guess what the speed limit was for the road, I would probably guess we're at 70, because even if only 10 of those 18 drivers are right around 70 miles per hour, that would still leave us with the bulk of the drivers driving a safe speed limit. So on to the last question here. In this, we're analyzing the data. So now we have the histogram here already for us, but we've got a couple questions about it. So dining out. The bar graph shows the number of times people dine out each month. How many people are presented in this histogram? Remember, the number of people is in each stack, so each bar is going to be an amount of people. So from 0 to 10, I see we're at 5. 11 to 20, we're right at 6. 21 to 30 times a month, we're at about 12. 31 to 40, that's 7. It's not 17, but 15. And then 41 to 50 is about 7. And 51 to 60 looks like they're at 5. So we just need to add these numbers up to get our total. So 5 plus 6 will give us 11. 11 plus 12 gives us 23. 23 plus 15 is going to give us 38. 38 plus 7 will give us 45. And 45 plus 5 gives us 50. So 50 total people presented. That's our first question. So 50 people. The second question is, what percent ate out more than 40 times per month? So as I mentioned previously, this would be a type of question we can answer. They said more than 40, so we aren't worried about 40, but everything above it. So I see that we have a stack of 7 plus 5 is going to give us 12. So those are the number that do eat out more than 40 times per month, but we're trying to find a percent. So we take how many we have as a part and divide it by the whole, which we just had above of 50. So 12 divided by 50, or 12 over 50, will give us our fraction. Since 50 goes into 100, let's just multiply both the top and bottom by 2 to get 24 over 100. Any number over 100 is going to be that number as a percent, or n over 100 is n percent. So 24 over 100 will give us 24%, and that is our answer. One last example I have over here is how to make a histogram from a table of data. So in this case, they say make a histogram of the data using the intervals 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and 31 to 40. So they gave us the ranges there. Now we have to remember, 20 is going to be in the 11 to 20 range, not in the 21 range, 21 to 30. So going through, we have 22. That's going to be in 21 to 30. As you see, I'm going to make tally marks so that I can get my data in a format so that I can easily put it onto the histogram. 13 is going to be between 11 and 20. 34 is between 31 and 40. 25 is between 21 and 30. 29 is also between those two numbers of 21 and 30. 33 is in 31 and 40. 19 is in my first group, as is 11, as is 18. When you get to 5, you do an X to finish it off. So 37, or sorry, you cross your 4. 37 is going to be in between 31 and 40. 30 is going to be between 21 and 30. And 20 is going to be in our first group. And that's how you cross it off to show your 5. So my histogram is going to be pretty basic. I can make it pretty small here. It would be, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can label each one by 1. And then we don't even know the labels here. They didn't give us a label. But 11 to 20 is going to be 5. 21 to 30 is going to be 4. And 31 to 40 is going to be 3. And that is how we make our histogram. If you have any questions, or if you need more practice, check out our peer tutors online.